What's up, guys? Welcome to Inside the Wires. It's myself, Nobu, my partner, Eric, and our guest for tonight is Mark Powers.
What's going on,
Uh,
boys?
how are
What's up,
you?
Marc? How we doing, man?
Doing good. Doing good. Hanging in there. Hanging in there.
Nice. Have a good weekend. Did you get to
Good
watch some
weekend.
good
Not
paddle?
not good weekend. Not as good as Eric's taking home the Denver title, but had a pretty chill weekend. It was good.
Love it.
Yeah.
Um, well, first of all, before we get into it, congratulations on your wedding. Very exciting news.
Married
Thank
man.
you. Thank you. Yeah, man. I got it right here.
Look at that.
Proof.
Yeah.
How's it
Finally,
feel? How's it
finally,
feel?
it feels good. Finally at the point where I'm not fidgeting with it at work all day, but I've actually played a Thursday night league match with it on. Before that, I kept taking it off for my matches, and then realized that if unless I buy three backup rings, I'm gonna run through this real quick. I'm gonna lose it. So, but feels good, man. It was a great wedding. It was down in Highlands, North Carolina, around where Mayor's family lives, and yeah, it was a blast. We lucked out. It was gorgeous. Weather was perfect. Um, and then we went to Antigua after and just chilled for a week.
That's awesome.
There we
It
go. I
was
can't
all
believe you
good.
guys came back.
I know, right? But one funny little story though, where we like planning some activities on our vacations. Generally speaking, um, we can't normally sit still on a beach all day, and um, which obviously it's exactly what we did for the week. We sat on the beach all week, uh, having a few cocktails. And I think we were in day four, and we both looked at each other and we started getting a little stir crazy. We're having fun, but we're like, isn't Chicago Charities this weekend? So we're on the beach having mimosas with my computer, my laptop open at the foot of our like beach chair, watching the charities, which was hysterical. And there were a few people that came by and they're like, what is that sport? It was pretty good. But
Man, look
yeah,
at you, you paddle junkie.
yeah, right.
I think there's some courts in Jamaica. Yeah, how long of a flight is that? Can't be.
Can't be too far.
Yeah,
It's
just
got to be within an hour and a half,
yeah,
something like
just
that.
or is it Dominican Republic? There's somewhere random in the Caribbean that has paddle courts.
Really?
That's
Not
wild.
Yes.
Fidel.
No, platform tennis. I'm dead serious. Ask Mark Keeby. He I can't remember what it was. Like they were doing destination camps, but there's somewhere. I'm telling you. Hey, APTA, if you're listening, next tournament in Jamaica,
Seriously.
Dominican, come
Jamaica.
Host the Nationals down there. Jeez.
I'm
on.
in.
Get this
Yeah.
game a little international,
Yeah,
other than
seriously.
Canada.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of being paddle junkies, so you were obviously checking in on all your boys while you were on your honeymoon. So we'll talk a little bit about this weekend's tournament. So we'll start with the Long Island Dwayne Hayden Invitational. Um, Tomas and Drew taking down Alvi and Regalado, the Regalazar squad. I think that's their first. Is that their first loss of the season? I think.
I think so.
Pretty well. Did you guys get to watch any of that?
I watched a bit. I watched a bit this morning. I had no idea until this morning. Because we had a family events up in Connecticut yesterday, but um looked like a good match. Clearly a grind. I think it was relatively uh decisive from a score perspective, but the match was seemed like it was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So watch the first couple of games and then was kind of fast forwarding through, but it looked like I was clicking on 5 minute increments and the score stayed the same. It was the same point.
How
But
many lobs into the point did you start fast forwarding through?
um, no, but it seemed like Drew and Tomas played a really clean match, which to me is not it's not shocking, because when they decide to lock it down, um, they get everything back. They can punish you when you end up losing focus, 6 minutes into a point, and they're just very good, talented, fundamental paddle players. And um, so yeah, well played by them. It had been a while since I had seen Drew and Tomas play together. I remember they were playing together a few years ago, and they were a pain in the ass to play against. So we played them in Boston once, and they just every ball came back, no matter what you threw at them. And so it was cool to see them team up again together. Both great guys, great players. So
First match that I saw Drew and Tomas playing together was that one with in the finals of, I can't remember what tournament it was, but it was against Johan and Steven,
Boston,
where
yeah.
where Johan just lost it and just started hitting FYMs after like the third lob or something. Um,
Oh,
but speaking of which, I mean, it felt like when I was watching, I find it hard. We talked about this with Philippe too a little bit, about how it's so easy to get sucked into that style of play, right? Where things are slow, you're trying to be disciplined, but then you slow it down too much. Like, from what you watched, what would you have done differently um against them to kind of change up that pace of play? Um
so I feel like generally speaking, when you end up getting kind of um, I don't know, uncharacteristic misses out of a team, there are teams that are going to try to slow you down. Certain teams love to play fast. I love playing fast, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who will keep you out there for 3 hours, and you just have to accept it before the match. There are certain teams that are too good to just run through. Um, uh, and I feel like ultimately it's fine to slow down as long as you're still going for your shots. And where you end up getting caught missing is you're playing slow, you're not going after the high forehand that you've been waiting all point for, but you end up going for the wrong shot because you're like, shit, I didn't hit the high forehand. I need to create offense somehow.
yeah.
And so you're sitting there, and it's kind of there's a snowball effect of like, I need to play slow. I need to play slow because that's how I'm supposed to win this match. And then I passed up on three balls that I know they're all day shots for me. And when you start deviating from what like your best game plan is, even when you're just slowing it down, playing smart, but if you're not going for your offensive cuts when you have them, you end up like, I don't know, the wrong backside or the wrong side back when you're spinning around. That's when you end up pulling the trigger, and
Yep.
that's not sustainable. It's just not how you're gonna win matches.
Yeah.
So I felt like there was a little bit of from what I saw, there was a little bit of a spiral in their inability to really hurt them and end points, but and so it looked like there were shots that were being gone that they were going for that was just a little bit outside their sweet spot when they had plenty of other opportunities earlier in the point to attack. Looked like they were trying to force it a bit, but much easier said than done sitting behind a computer screen, but
Oh, totally.
especially against guys that level. So
I
Yeah.
mean, I'd be the best player in the country if I could apply what I'm thinking when I'm watching a match versus when I'm in there. I mean, to your point, I just find myself, it's like, okay, I'm going into a match. I'm thinking, all right, you just got to be patient, lock it down on the baseline, like wait for your opportunity. And then all of a sudden, like you said, I have like one opportunity pass, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta take advantage of the next one. Next thing I know, I'm trying to hit forehands and backhands like Eric West, and I just don't have that talent.
I don't know. No, but guys, you know how I kind of view from this weekend, it's like the NFL, right? Like for how good Jose and Alvi are, like, it's just really, really hard to go through a paddle season undefeated. And, you start to get more attention from other teams. I think it was a little bit of a perfect storm that Drew and Tomas, they make you play on their terms. Like
Yep.
Yep.
I can only maybe name maybe Mark, you and Guillermo, and then maybe Johan and Steven. Like those are teams. Now, of course, they play slow, you guys play fast, but those are maybe the only three teams, maybe also Graham and Adam, that like they just make you play on their tempo, on their terms. And like you said, Mark, like you have to go into that match embracing like, okay, this is gonna be really slow. No different that if someone was playing Johan and Steven, like, look, this is gonna be fast. But can you weather that storm and still, structure points that you're going to get the job done? Like you mentioned, not getting sucked into making bad decisions, still trusting it's the right shot, but also going in knowing, hey, this could be a 3 hour match. And I just think like, yeah, like how I referenced the NFL, they just, I wouldn't call it falling in under Drew and Tomas's spell, but like, to do that maybe every single weekend and come out with a win, it could be one of these things. Jose and Alvi win that match, say 7 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, but there's a reason why it's not going to happen every single time.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I mean, it's funny that we're saying it from that line, right? Drew and Tomas forced them to play their speed when in reality, Jose and Alvi have been forcing everybody else to play that speed, all season.
Yeah.
And so I think, listen, I got a kind of a follow-up thought on that, but I don't really think anyone's tried to play them that way, other than Drew and Tomas a few weeks ago, and they had a tight match. And I'm not saying that that's the answer to beat those guys. They're playing phenomenally well. I'm not suggesting that's the answer for all teams to try to play that way against them. I just think that there aren't that many of those teams that play that style in the game these days.
Right.
A lot of guys are, people generally like playing fast and trying to be explosive, and so it was a kind of battle of attrition. It was very interesting. It was very interesting, but yeah, I think because that, I don't know how often those guys are practicing against guys who are just gonna get every ball back and be as meticulous and as kind of tactically aggressive, but ultimately a willingness to stay out there all day. There aren't that many teams that they've kind of come against that, and that's kind of a big thing at paddle. The game's always evolving, and there's always like these weird cycles. I haven't played now. I guess it's my ninth season, and I remember the first couple of years it was just so fast and so explosive, and then people started slowing the game down, and Johan and Parsons were on top when I started, and then Drew and Jared never missing a shot. They won, 3 years in a row, and then Johan decides to start playing slow and starts beating everybody, and it's funny how it kind of all reverts back to good fundamental paddle with explosive shots here and there, but I don't know.
Sprinkle in a little fun.
Oh, you have to. It's got to be fun.
Yeah. A little pizzazz.
Absolutely.
How much do you guys think this thought just creeped into my head. Marc, I think you and I were in school roughly around the same time. UVA was obviously a powerhouse in tennis.
Yeah.
But always went down, at the big dance at NCAA's. Granted, USC had a killer squad as well, so right, let's keep that in
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
But I had some friends that played at UVA, and they did talk about the pressure of showing up at NCAA's undefeated. The whole season is kind of built around this one tournament, training through matches. And the year that they won was a year that they weren't undefeated. How much do you guys think that this kind of frees up Alvi and Jose a little bit of not having to maintain, quote unquote perfection? Obviously, they're a sick team. I don't really think that's much of a blemish on your record. Tomas and Drew are an amazing team as well. But how much do you think that kind of lifts a little bit of pressure of that expectation or standard of perfection that they've been kind of uh, having on their shoulders? I feel like showing up to this, I feel like it's like, oh, Alvi and Jose again.
Yeah, I think that's right. Um, there's definitely a little bit of that where you feel like you're a target. Um, and there could be a little bit of pressure there, but those guys both seem like they've competed quite a bit. They've got good heads on their shoulders. I wouldn't read that much into that, me, but I probably would. I would actually say from the other perspective, when everyone starts trying to figure out how to beat a team, it's a huge mental advantage for the team that people are trying to figure out. Um, everyone is going to say, "Oh, we have to do this. We have to change our game plan that way. We have to do, and ultimately, I there have been a lot of matches that I've ended up pulling out where I was gifted some very big points because they thought they had to do more than they actually had to do. You know, I am out of position and I'm trying to be aggressive and hike the side and hit a high forehand. I'm completely out of position. There's no way I'm going to hit a good forehand here. And they end up hitting the overhead wide because they feel like they have to do more. And that's just one example, but I think belief from teams that they're playing against, I think it's hard. It's going to be hard for most teams and a lot of players to go out there and feel like they should be beating them right now because they have been playing such great paddle.
Yeah.
Yep. So yes, there's no question that the pressure is real. When you're on a hot streak like that, just takes one loss to ruin the streak, not the season obviously, but the streak. Undefeated is hard to improve upon for a season, but at the same time, it's
Mark, I was going to ask you, has there ever been a team that went the whole year without losing? I know it's happened. I think Floor and Anna did it 3 years ago on the women's side, but I'm not too sure about the men's side.
I don't know. I think Drew and Jared may have gone a whole season
Okay.
undefeated because I also think they were, Jared was out in California. They weren't playing that many tournaments. I think they played like 5 or 6 tournaments in the year. I would be shocked if they didn't go one season undefeated. John and I had a good run in 2018, but we had lost in the finals of the first 2 tournaments of the year. And that felt like a good relative run for a season. But I'm pretty sure those guys had. But it's hard. It's hard, man. Especially just given how much fall paddle is different than winter paddle, which is different than early spring paddle. It changes so much, and also you have like new entrants. Some guys play a ton in the early fall, and other guys wait until the back half of the season to come alive. And so yeah, I'd be really interested in that stat though.
We'll have to look that up, Eric.
Yeah, seriously.
An APTA trivia question right there.
Yeah. Well, on that same note, on the women's side, Lopez, and I hope I pronounced her name right, Pajic,
I think
um,
it's Paige.
Paige.
Simple,
I mean, you
clean.
would think a guy with a name like mine would be better at pronouncing other people's names, given that I've had to deal with it my whole life. But they had a great tournament. Beat Burrish and uh, this one's a hard one.
I
I
think the
think it's
C is
Nube.
silent.
I think it's a
Yes,
silent C.
the C is. Look at us. We can do this thing.
Yeah, yeah. um, but yeah, I mean Lopez and Page coming off a tough match with Anna and Floor, actually 7-6 in the third, right? And then coming in this week and having a really good run. Goes back to what we were talking about, how the women's game is evolving. Obviously, Burrish wasn't playing with her normal partner, Macy, but still a really good tournament for Lopez and Pajic, beating Morgan and Sakura in the semis in straights. So, really good tournament. I don't know if you guys got to watch some of that, but I was watching some of it over the weekend, and it looked like a similar script on the women's side as it did on the men's side, right? One team just being hyper disciplined with their tactics, not deviating much from what they went in trying to do, and then just forcing the other team to come up with something. And Burrish was standing in the middle of the court trying to find her forehand, create a little disruption. But yeah, it was really fun stuff to watch as well. I don't know
So,
if you guys.
so guys, I got a prediction here.
Ooh,
This is the on the women's side, the version of Jose and Alvi this time last year. This is on everyone's radar. Lopez and Page, they are coming for you guys. They are coming.
I like it.
I think this is their first tour event win. The floodgates are open. This team is coming in hot. They're
They've been
confident.
knocking at the door for the last
Yeah,
few tournaments.
right. And now that they get the win, and I think I saw in the post-match interview that Taya, I think she's only playing for maybe a year and a half. And Nobu, we were able to watch her in Baltimore to now. I mean, like what was Baltimore, 2 months ago? How much she's
Yeah,
improved already. Like,
maybe less. I think Baltimore was end of October, right,
yeah.
right before Halloween.
And B, you saw it towards the end of last season, how much she was getting better. I think she was playing with Liz Cruz a good amount. So, um, I think you get to learn a ton when you play with an experienced partner. Um, so yeah, I think this is the alarms are the sirens going off. This is a team to be on the lookout for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I caught some of their match. Um, was it Westchester that they had like a crazy three-set match
Yeah,
with
they lost
Anna
to
and
Florida
Four
on a
in like
7-6 in the third
seven,
set.
six, and third? Yeah, that's right. I was watching that. I mean, super explosive team. Uh, and they seem very, very comfortable on the court uh against the top teams.
Yeah, no fear. No
Just
fear
no,
out of
just
them.
no, yeah, no fear. They don't feel it doesn't look at all like they're trying to overplay. Like they seem very, very comfortable for a young team against experienced, talented, top teams. And um, it's also fun. Tay is at Stamford Yacht Club, my home club that I grew up going to, and she's over there with Tin actually.
Oh,
And so it's been
nice.
kind of a breakout season for the SYC crew, which is awesome. Awesome to see. Um, Happy for them. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, staying on the East Coast, we had another tour stop out in Pittsburgh with the West Penn Open. Um, and then we can stay with the women's side of it. Uh, I did not get to watch this one. I don't know if it
I
was
don't think it was live
being,
streamed.
I was gonna say I don't know if it was being live streamed, but Guillot and Wilson Graves beat Parinello and Pike in the finals. Looked like another good match, 6-1. Um, really cool to see. I feel like, for example, in Baltimore, something that we were struggling with. We knew the men's side was going to get stacked, but the women's draw was a little bit. We were kind of curious to see how many people were going to sign up, and in this tournament, it seemed like I think there were no buys in the entire draw, which was really cool to see to have a completely full 32 draw for the women. So Pittsburgh is doing something right over there with their women's leagues, attracting so
Philippe
many
wasn't
people.
lying. He wasn't kidding.
No, no, Philippe was
Seriously.
not lying. Something's in the water out there in Pittsburgh with paddle. Um, and then on the men's side, you had Rams and Wagner taking it home against Ong and Weiss. Is it Weiss or Weissy?
We see.
Man,
Shout
I
out
gotta,
Tom Weesey. He's
yeah,
the best. He's such a good dude. I think he's riding high on his IU Hoosiers right now. But the guy, he's I shouldn't say old, but I think Mark, do you know how old Tom is? He's got to be like 55, 60, and he's out there just pounding forehands.
He's still playing really good ball. That's for sure.
that's
Um,
awesome.
I haven't seen, speaking of Vong, I haven't seen Steinman out there much this year.
Just had his first kid.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Robert, congrats, man. I know we were talking at charities, but yeah, he's busy being a dad.
Good for him.
Fair excuse.
Yeah,
Fair excuse.
I'll accept.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and so let's take it over to the other side of the country where our boy Eric West played in the Colorado State Open. And congratulations to you, Eric, on another title out there um, at the Arapahoe Tennis Club. We were talking a little bit about it. Beautiful little spot out there in Colorado. Five paddle courts. I know when I've been out there visiting that they have a pretty good paddle program. My partner Puig is one of the pros out there trying to grow paddle out there. So shout out to him for getting a good crew of guys together. Marc, your partner was out there having a
Yeah.
good time up in the mountains playing some paddle. Tell us a little bit about the tournament, Eric. How was
Yeah,
it?
I
Maybe we
mean,
can get more guys showing up next year.
it was
Make it a thing.
it was such a good weekend. I actually flew up a day early. So I flew in Thursday. I actually jumped in their league play Thursday night. Got some hiking in Friday, drove up to Boulder.
Oh, nice.
Um, but I mean, huge shout out to Brad Redding. He's actually high school friends with Zach Held. So I think Brad reached out to Zach's like, hey, how can we throw a big time event here in Denver? And Zach and the Indy boys, they have really built up the Indy tournament as I
Yep.
think last year it was the highest rated APTA Tour event. So obviously Zach and them know what they're doing in Indy. They're spreading the word to the Denver guys, and they are hungry to make it a tour event. So hospitality was incredible. There was prize money. And Arapahoe Tennis Club, their community showed up. Like there at
That's
least over
awesome.
200 people there for the final
Wow.
or all day, just having a good time. Um, but it got me thinking because their stadium court, it's called the Thunderdome.
That's hilarious.
What would out of whatever tournament or whichever club, what would you guys say is your favorite court, or you could see a court being like a stadium court? Because this Thunderdome, as they proudly call it, has like these it's like first sunken in, and then they have wooden bleachers like surround it. But since it's sunken in, you can also view from like up top. Like the commentating booth, they put it on the paddle hut. So then they were looking down like this was this was like
Wow.
it was like an ATP Challenger event like on steroids. Like it was just but what would you guys say is your favorite like court? And I guess Mark, like past nationals that you played in where you like there was just a ton of people and the atmosphere was unbelievable.
I mean, I would say Darian always does a good job with at nationals with the stadium seating. Um, I mean, kind of ex nationals though. I mean, my favorite place historically um, to play has been uh, Boston. Um, when that Saturday night gets going under the lights, and they've got the food, and they've historically have had was Bully Boy Distilleries is like one of their sponsors, and everyone's drinking old fashions and feeling loosey goosey. That's always a fun one, but I uh, I don't know that there are any other like huge standout stadium courts I can think of at these clubs. Nothing like what you're describing. That's for sure.
Nothing like the
No,
Thunderdome.
no
Oh.
Thunderdomes out there.
You know,
We're waiting for Ara to post that video of you dropping a little thunder yourself. There was that in the Thunderdome? Were
That
you
was in the
throwing lightning in
Thunderdome.
there? Nice.
I'm waiting. Either Ara or Ennis has got to post this video. I sent it to you guys. But for some context, I think Zach Held was trying to blitz, and when I say trying, it's pretty hysterical that he was trying to run forward and blitz. But he falls down, and I have the opportunity to just light him up. And he's on his back. He somehow gets his paddle on it, and the very next shot, I hit a cutter that he cut drop shot that he can't get it. But I mean, I don't know how he didn't break his ankle or the dude fell straight on his ass and he made the shot. I ask Ronnie Schneider. He'll give you the whole insight on it all.
I actually just watched the point again, and it's hysterical. That needs to be that needs to be posted. Um, but yeah, the tournament was fun because I've wanted to go play. My cousin lives out in Denver. He was actually the best man at my wedding. Meredith and I have been itching to go visit them, and thought it made sense to time it around playing the smaller Colorado tournament. Not with all the studs, but Dave's probably like a I don't know, 13 or 14 PTI. He started playing the league stuff out there a few years ago. But I've heard it's awesome. He does that Thursday night thing, and he says it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So I've been itching to get out there.
APTA, if you're listening, give them one more year, 2 years. It's got to be a tour stop. I'm calling it now. It's got to be.
Well,
They're investing too much money into this. The community is awesome. They have enough courts, so could be a new version of Baltimore.
Dude, that would be I mean, you can sign me up right now. Hopefully not too many of you guys will go so I can have a little chance to get out there myself. Any excuse to visit Denver is a good one. But yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I wanted to go this year and play with Matt, but just work couldn't make it happen this year. But Matt, if you're listening next year, count me in. Just hopefully I won't slip and fall and be on you on Instagram next year for something like that.
uh,
um, while we are on a little bit of a history contact with Eric asking about favorite course to play on, Marc, why don't you give us a little background on yourself? How'd you get into this? I heard you say that you were a member or you grew up at the club where B and Tin are coaches at now.
So
So tell us a
Ted,
little.
yeah,
Taya, sorry,
yeah,
Taya.
no, you're good.
Um, so tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into it, um, playing tournaments, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so I played paddle uh, when I was younger too. A close buddy of mine from junior tennis in New England, he was my doubles partner in a bunch of New England tennis tournaments. Kid Eric Delia had been playing a bunch, and I think he had already, I don't know, I think he had played junior nationals, and he was set to play with his normal partner one year in the 12 and unders, and he asked me if I wanted to try filling in for his partner. And at this point, I had no idea what it was. But I went out and got a lesson with him, and then the next weekend we're playing 12 and under paddle nationals. Um, and so I played junior paddle tournaments with him through 18s. To be clear, junior paddle then was not what it is now. It was essentially everyone trying to hit each other with high forehands and really get everyone looking kind of hysterical off the screens. I mean, there were some kids who could actually get screens back, but it was who played the best form of tennis on the paddle court.
That
A
sounds
mix
super
of that.
fun.
It was a good time. But so I did that growing up. Um, a fun thing to do in the winters, kind of in between tennis tournaments. And then didn't really play much during when I was in college. But call it a year after I started playing for the Stanford Yacht Club, kind of men's league again, Thursday nights. And then Mike Cochran actually got me into the Westchester League. And at this point, I didn't know what I was doing. I remember pretty early on, and this is when I'm playing like court 5 on the Westchester League team. I go out. Brad Easterbrook invites me out to play with um, Max Lipiver and Martin Bostrom and him. And I just remember like we're warming up. I'm like, yeah, I can still hit the ball. This is fun. Like hitting forehands, great. We start playing, and the ball's like cutting everywhere and jumping around, and I'm getting spun around the whole time. I'm like, what is this? This is a different game. Like, this is not cool. Like, is this like, did they somebody mess with the ball? Is somebody fucking with me? Like, this is um and but yeah, I mean, I started playing a few tournaments with a guy that I had partnered up with on the Westchester League. I think we were playing court 4 together at this time, played a few events. And then John Hughes actually reached out to my old partner, reached out to Martin Bostrom uh, to play in like a Hartford tournament, which is hysterical because it was the weekend of Chicago Charities, and of course Martin was playing Charities. Like at the time, everyone played the big tournaments. It's a little less so now, um, but Martin was like, this kid Mark Powers is starting to play a bunch. Like he'd probably be down to play, and so Martin Bostrom is responsible for linking the two of us up. Actually, we played that. We had a blast, and early the next season, we decided to kind of play everything together, and the rest is history. But
Eric, do you remember your first time playing paddle?
Oh yeah. It was me, an 82-year-old, some guy wearing jeans, and a guy
Epic.
that came on the court with 4 cans of beer. Um,
No
and I
wonder you're
was like,
playing
oh,
with
this
me.
is number one. I was like, why am I on this court? Like, I was looking over a court with like actually guys my age, and they looked like they knew what they were doing. And it was our Thursday night league here in Cincinnati. So you play one set, rotate around. I lost every set 6-0. I actually hit an overhead out of the court, bounce in over the court. And no one told me you couldn't do that.
They're like
That was,
that.
Intentionally.
yes,
Sure.
yes. So that was my introduction. And, I know some former tennis players, they go through that experience and they then don't pick up a paddle again, but I was hooked. I loved every second of it. And I came back and I think I won 3 games the next day. And then the next week I maybe got to 6-5 or 6-4, 7-5. But no, I think it's one of those things as when we get into a competitive atmosphere, like you're like, all right, I can't suck at this. Like I used to be a good tennis player. Like I got to be good at this. And that's where it all started.
Yeah. It's wild. You really have to buy in early. You have
Yes.
to
Yeah,
you
you
have to
do.
accept that yes, you have the skills from tennis, but it's a different game. And it's wild how many talented tennis players like just they just won't accept that it's not tennis. Um,
It's a
but
humbling game, man.
oh
I'll
yeah.
tell you, like, I remember my first time playing paddle. Mark, you might remember the name. This guy, Will Beck, played for Virginia Tech.
Oh yeah.
Um, so Will is a good buddy of mine, and he's the one that introduced me to it. And you know, I said this in the last podcast, but I had no idea what paddle tennis was. I mean, I would go to like when clay courts was at Woodmont. I remember going to Columbia and seeing these like mini tennis courts in a cage, and my dad's like, "Oh, let's go warm up there." Like no one's using those little things, and I'm like, What are these for?" But after graduating and stopped playing tennis tournaments, my buddy Will was like, "Hey, let's go out there. It's something fun. It's a bunch of ex-tennis junkies that are just like out here drinking beers, like having a good time." I was like, "Okay, I'll go." So they put me on the court. It was me, Will, this guy Danny Stahl that played for Notre Dame, and I can't
Oh
remember who
yeah.
our. You remember Danny?
Yeah.
Um, and I forget who our fourth was, but no one. Same thing as Eric. Like no one told me what the rules were. No one told me what was going to happen with the ball.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting twisted around, like in tennis, I had pretty decent returns. So Will sets up to serve. I'm standing there. I have no idea where I'm supposed to stand. I'm just like standing like a tennis return. And Will throws in this kick serve and the ball hits the deck and this thing moves like I like almost got hit in the face. And I was like,
Yep.
yo, what is this ball doing? Like how much movement is there on this thing? And but to your point, like it's one thing, paddle patience is something that's just like so different than like I was a counterpuncher in tennis and I could sit on the baseline all day long and just grind. But this like boys 12, just like moon ball. I was like, yo, I'm never playing this thing. Plus, I'm losing to these like 60-year-old dudes that I would never lose to in anything else in my life and I'm getting crushed like
Yep.
1-1, 2-1, 0-0. I was just like, dude, I can't deal with this. Like my ego is too fragile for this.
Dude,
um,
we've all been there. We
oh
all
my
have
god,
those stories when you start out and you're playing somebody in their mid 60s and you're just
oh,
getting raked.
just.
It is, yeah.
I mean, I hit this big overhead off the wide, up, hit this big overhead at the net. I think I hit a good shot. Guys coming in on service line, tag. It's like, oh, dude, this is ridiculous. Oh man, but no, totally does require buy-in, and like you said, I know a lot of guys, ultra talented tennis players who just can't get themselves to buy into the whole be patient, wait for your ball. It's just like we were all saying, it's totally different. It's like a different mindset to have to wait for like that one ball that you really like that
Yeah.
you can make all day long. Um, and
Well,
just
that,
having that
and I
discipline.
think too, you guys, like you need someone to teach you as well. Like
Yeah.
you can, so okay, you start with the phase that you don't know what the hell you're doing, and then you kind of watch and you see how they're lobbing and they're not playing as fast. So I think then you get to a level and then you kind of have to create an identity. Like, how do you want to play paddle? And, I always talk about this here in Cincinnati. I have Doug Jones, I have Rob Bacher here in town that even like Rob still helps out Tyler and I. He'll watch the live stream and he'll, help us out with some pointers. Mark, who was your kind of go-to guy to get you to that next level when maybe you and John started playing together and started
Yeah, so
big time
so
titles?
there have been two people who have been like wildly helpful for me. Uh Brad Easterbrook and Jim Kaufman. Um and so I mean Brad was the one who kind of got me into the sport, and got me feeling a bit more comfortable with the sport, um and uh Jim approached uh, John and I after our first nationals together in Darien, where we lost in like a heartbreaking three-setter against Baxter Heath in the round of 16. And that was kind of like our first year together. We had a breakout kind of beginning of the season. And they played a great match, but he's just, he had played tennis at Yale. He had been number one in the country in his heyday. Made a bunch of finals. I think he played with Scott Stanier a bit, and he also played with Brad a bit. But he was the one. I'd say he Jim was the one who got us to figuring out that we couldn't play tennis on the paddle court. We were getting away with a lot because we were. I mean, I was probably 24, 25. John was 27, and he's just a sick athlete. So he's jumping all over the place. And we were playing good paddle, but like we didn't stand a chance against the top teams. Like we'd play. I remember we played against Lubao de Rose in like the first tournament of the season. We're playing at the first Grand Prix we ever play, and we had had a few really big wins early in the tournament that we were not expected to have. Like I think we had beaten like Banchia and Bacher early in the tournament, and they didn't even know our names. And then we ended up beating a few other seeds to end up in the semis, and we're playing DeRose, who's my favorite player ever to watch, and his partner Luba, who's awesome. And we kept hitting these down up overheads, and we kept getting like essentially hit like straight up. We kept jumping back, hitting these overheads. We're like, that feels like a pretty good overhead, and we just kept getting pegged. Like that's not a very good overhead, I guess. But like, what else are we supposed to do? Like I didn't think there was no way in my mind. I'm sitting there being like, what would be a really good overhead? A soft little floaty overhead to the middle of the court as a safe overhead. Like, in a million years, I wouldn't have thought that that was the right play. But it was. It just took kind of really smart veteran players, great players to kind of show us the light a little bit. It's really helpful. So, um, so yeah, definitely been lucky with that.
Eric, who was the one that was like instrumental in getting you out of that tennis phase?
You guys are gonna love this. It was actually Tomas probably.
Oh, you and me
Oh
both, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay. Tomas,
Well,
Coach
I guess
T.
I won't call it tennis, but he helped me learn how to play slow.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the fact that, okay, we're going to lob out here all day, but it was, you got to think about this too. Like Tomas and I like playing different styles, but in order for us to have good results, we need to kind of come to a compromise of, okay, how can we work with each other? And, is Tomas maybe lobbing to this spot to get me a backhand drive or just,
Yep.
but I couldn't force it all the time. Like I couldn't be out there, quote unquote, hitting tennis drives. Like I had to really start to think about, okay, how are we going to develop this point to finally getting a drive? that I know that I can confidently make with less risk, but also put our opponents into pressure. And yeah,
Yep.
that was essentially the longest paddle I've ever played. And it just felt so slow, but it made so much sense. And there was another time, this was maybe our second or third tournament together. We were playing Short Hills a couple of years ago, and we're playing Juan and Mark. And, the obvious thing is for Tomas to dice up overheads to the ad and me to dice up overheads to the deuce. And then you look across the other side and there's Juan's forehand in the deuce, and there's Parsons' backhand in the ad.
Yeah, you don't want to go wide to that backhand.
No. And
I've learned many a time.
and I shit you guys not, we won the first set and it's on the live stream. We literally hit every overhead down the middle.
Yep.
And before playing with Tomas, I would have never I would have, you know, kind of carry an ego into that, like, oh, my cut overhead could beat out Juan's forehand. But it was just that you're rolling the dice. You got to think
Yeah.
my overhead that day better than Juan's forehand. And at that time in my stage of my career, that I'd rather take the route of just
There,
dumping the
there,
ball
there,
down the middle.
there are better spots.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, obviously Rob and Doug Jones and Eric Toth here in Cincinnati helped me, get out of that phase. But I think from the competitive, top in the country, playing with Tomas, hands down taught me how to, I guess, win without having it to be a tennis match out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was with Tomas when he told me, it's like, yeah, I've got this guy. He's starting to play more tournaments. He's really talented tennis player. He's like, we might try to play a few tournaments together. I was like, who is this? Eric West. I was like, oh, I remember Eric West from junior tennis.
You from Coupe de Quebec?
Oh yeah, jeez, that was such a funny little tournament.
Yeah, Nobu, Mark and I had a little international bout in the 12 and unders when I lived in
Oh,
Canada.
okay.
Yeah.
Is
I
uh is Coupe de Quebec similar to the one in where is it? Is it in France? I forget what the name of that one is. Le
No,
Petit
no, this
something.
was like a little team
this is
event. It
yeah,
was
Oh, okay.
New England versus little areas of Canada.
Okay.
It was a hysterical little tournament. It
yeah,
was
That's
fun.
fun
It was
though.
so
Yeah,
fun
that
for
sounds
us. I
fun.
mean, we had a blast, but it was like yeah,
yeah. Mark
funny.
got me, but we don't really have to talk
No,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is two
Mark got a lot
episodes in
of
a
people in junior
row.
tennis.
This is two episodes in a row of me talking about an embarrassing tennis story of who I lose to.
Uh,
I tell people, hey, I was good at tennis, but apparently everyone we have on, I have to tell a embarrassing tennis story.
Well, it's kind of sad. The one thing I'd say is like, I don't know, when I started playing, first couple of years I started playing paddle, I was like, it was awesome seeing Casey Watt playing. Like I grew up, competing against Casey a ton, and we became good friends, and in the junior circuit. And Drew Courtney, I heard, was starting to play, and I saw him at a few
yeah,
events, and we played doubles together at Kalamazoo. Like
yeah.
we, I also remember we're playing Philly Nationals. I think it was like 2016, and Jameer Jenkins was there, and he just started working
Oh wow.
a finance job in Philly, and he came out to the tournament, and I saw him. We just struck up a conversation, and he's like, "This looks fun. I'm starting to get into it. I might have to tear up the tour next year." I was like, that's sick. I would love that.
Dude,
That would be
I
Jameer Jenkins would
that would
be.
be a
he would be
hyper
insane.
athletic dude.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of those guys haven't been playing, or just like I'm surprised there aren't more tennis guys from either college tennis or junior tennis that we see out here. I mean, it's
I think we're
kind of
seeing it
Drew,
now, though. I think because we're all, early 30s here. I think we're starting to see like those like 25, kind of like Mark when you started, but I think like the game is definitely deep because of that influx of
yeah.
23 to 27-year-olds.
oh, a
I
100%. 100%. I was just saying it's a bummer we don't have more of our crew,
Yeah.
but you
I
know,
mean, Drew, speaking of Drew's down in Charlottesville. I think he's working in the finance, industry, but Drew, Drew was playing a lot. Obviously, Drew's super talented doubles
yep,
guy. I mean,
yep,
super talented tennis player in general, but just, extremely good at doubles, great hands.
yep.
I went down to Charlottesville. They have a tournament down there. I think it's called Paddle at the Farm. Fun little event down there in Farmington Country Club. I don't know if you've been there before. But cool little spot. And I'll say, dude, that guy, I played him in the semis with my buddy Damon, and Damon played for Elon. Um, Drew can still play, man. I mean,
Oh yeah,
he is a tough. That was a tough out against him. Um, and he's playing. It's just I think paddle needs to keep making its way down south.
yeah.
But I heard a rumor actually out of there that Tret Huey is getting into it.
Nice.
And that
He
would
would be
be
sick.
that would be a nasty,
Lefty, right?
nasty dude. Lefty, yeah, lefty
Yep.
guy.
Yeah.
That
That's
would be a
awesome.
nasty. I mean, I remember if his cut overheads to the side wire or anything like his kick serve was. I mean,
Yep.
I don't want to see that.
Well, if you guys are trying to grow the sport in the South, you guys should head down to the Charlotte Open, which is coming up in January. It's going to be my third back to back.
Oh yeah.
Mark, we were texting
Yeah.
about it, but you know what stinks? It's the same
It's
weekend
the
as
same
the
weekend as
first time ever.
Midwesterns.
It's
I
same
know.
weekend as Midwesterns.
I know. I know.
Oh,
I will
Unfortunately,
play that one year, I promise.
yeah, we'll definitely make it happen. Unfortunately, Midwesterns doesn't stand up to my father-in-law's 24-hour brisket, which he's bribing me with. So
ooh,
I
that
will be
sounds
down
good.
there. I will be down there with Meredith and her fam, and they have an awesome time down there. They put together a great event. Um, tons of people come out because it's not the biggest following. It's not the most played sport in Charlotte. I'd say safe statement, but everyone who does play comes out, and they have a great time. They're grilling up food, they're having beer, they make a whole event of it, and it's a blast. So if you're ever looking for another tournament to throw on the old schedule, not a bad one.
Hey, I think this is gonna have to become a new tradition, Eric, where we get a tournament from each guest, and we just have to make a trip down there. Uh, the following year or in a couple of years, and start to grow the sport that way. So
Yeah,
it sounds
Yeah.
like
heavy plugs, heavy plug.
Hey, we do
sounds like
on-site
Mark.
interviews.
Yeah, Mark is coming out to Denver for Arapahoe one of
Yep.
these years.
Oh yeah.
And I am not the main attraction, but Eric, I will play second fiddle to you any day of the week. But we will make our way down to Charlotte, and maybe Mark can bribe us with some of his father-in-law's 24-hour brisket as well. Because
I think he's essentially told me if you can get anybody else down, any other tournament players that are not from the South, he's like, I will throw as much barbecue on the grill for everybody. So
I mean, listen,
you're
Mark,
in.
you're speaking my language. When you talk to my belly, that's all you got to do, man. I'm easily bribed with good food.
Aren't we all?
Um,
Um,
Well, with Eric's comment of us being in our mid 30s, which sometimes or early 30s, I should say, still early 30s. I haven't hit
yeah,
that mid
come
30s
on, dude.
yet,
Don't
yet,
don't don't
yet.
don't do, don't say mid 30s. We
Don't
don't
do
we
us
don't need
dirty
that. We
like
don't
that
need
yet.
that.
No. um, but it's a hard reality to face when I'm watching tennis on TV, and I'm like, oh my God, like all my people are retiring. The guys I know, my buddies that are on tour, like they're retiring. What does that only means one thing for me. But on the paddle circuit, like as much as I like to think that we're all rookies, we're kind of in the middle of the pack now, and you're one of the OGs. of the game. Um, would have been, some of the more exciting, um, let's call them evolutions of the game that you've seen from when you started to now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of wild. For a long time, I was, John and I were kind of the young guys on tour, um, and everyone who was in the top 20 was 35 to 45. Um, Now they're all in sick shape, great athletes. It does make me feel better about our group's chances in terms of longevity, is just how good all these guys are in their mid 40s. I mean, it's obviously not everybody, but like you stay in shape and you're a good athlete, like we have a fighting chance. We've got some years left in the tank, I think, boys. But it was really cool because my first year nationals, um, playing in back draw match of the 16s draw, and I get to play against Uline, and I think it was Uline and Banchila, and it was Uline's last tournament ever. So I got to like actually play against the guy who pretty much invented the cut overhead, and his overhead was insane. And he hit a few FYMs. He tagged John. It was hysterical. Um, but like I feel like I've kind of traversed a bunch of different like legendary classes, and have gotten to see all of them progress from, I guess at this point when I started playing, I mean, Johan was in his mid 30s. And 9 years later, he's still at the top of the game, with another partner. Stephen Mitchell joins the paddle world, a little later in his career, and then ends up being an absolute stud and gets better got better every time he played. And watching Drew play with a bunch of different partners, but getting to see him just tackle the tour with Jared was super fun. And having a top tennis player like that, compete compete with us as a crew was really cool. And Jared's a great guy. Um, and then for a little while, it felt like our age crew started kind of running it a bit. There was like a 2 year period where, Graham's coming out and playing unbelievable paddle, and Nick and Sven are playing great. And, Adam Morgan and Tyler Frazier. I know Tyler's a bit younger, but like it felt like we started winning more events, and, it wasn't just the Drews and the Johans and Parsons and Wands. And then they started winning again, and then we started getting 25-year-olds joining the sport. Like it's been wacky, man. um and it's also funny to think about. We were talking earlier about playing slow versus playing fast, and there have been years where everyone on tour is playing fast. Nobody wants to play slow at all, and it's super action packed. Everyone's having a blast, going for stupid crap, but like having fun. And it was super explosive. And then the next year, people are like, well, I guess if we want to win, we can't do that. So then it becomes ultra slow, and then it's a little painful, especially if you're watching on live streaming. It's less boring if you're watching live. Can we at least say that on this? Because I feel like if everyone just watches the YouTube videos, they're gonna quickly turn it off these days. But and now it's a mix, and now it's gotten slow, but the slow that I remember when I started playing was like unathletic slow. Like athletes who are playing slow, very athletic people playing slow, but it wasn't people sprinting all over the court, getting crazy gets, tons of transition, bobbing a lot, people FYMing still. Like the game now it's gotten more physical, even when it's slow. Like these matches are not like, you'd play a you play a pusher in the 12 and unders, you get off the court and you're like, sucks. You play a pusher and paddle, you're like, I'm not tired. like I know I played 3 hours, but I'm not tired because nothing happened. And now it's you play those matches and you're exhausted
Yeah.
because everyone's fit, everyone's running everything down, people are
Yeah.
bailing. Now it's like to avoid the fast play, people aren't even trying to make volleys. They're just sprinting to the back screen to throw up a lob and start the point over again. But I don't know, man. It's been wild. It is crazy. I don't think. I mean, I certainly haven't seen it. I don't know if it's happened before, but I can't remember of a time where a bunch of like first year, second year young guys have had this big of an impact on the sport. That's been wild.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like a year into playing a sport like this, where there's so much from like a mental difference to tennis and general tactic, like I don't know how I didn't buy into it that much, not even close. It took me years. So the fact that they're playing like like fundamental paddle that well is insane. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm
long
I'm
it.
still working on fundamental paddle myself. I think to to backtrack a little bit, to Eric's point, Tomas was definitely playing with Tomas in Baltimore last year was my introduction to being like, all right, if I want to compete at this level, because look, to be fair, like this level is super fun, and that's really what got me to buy into it was being able to play these tournaments, being able to play against guys like you. I mean, I've never played against you, Mark, but like guys of that caliber. Um, and that's been exciting. And obviously, the competitor in me wants to be able to compete. Like, it's a fun learning experience to lose right now, but like my ego can't take that for too long. So I got to figure out how to win. Um, my thing is definitely trying to find that balance point between like playing slow and playing fast for sure. Um, but what I've been super impressed with these new guys is that, to your point of people's athleticism, it is fundamental paddle, but like guys like Milos Dabic, who's, brand new to the game, yes, he can play screens really well. Yes, he can do a lot of the fundamental paddles really well, but they are so explosive. They're climbing up wires, they're hitting crazy things off of, good, what I would have thought were good overheads, um, creating different looks. I think that's been to me this year watching because I feel like the game's changed end of last year, even into this year a little bit. Um, I think that's been super exciting to see is that subtle change with the athleticism changing, slightly changing the tactics for all the players really.
Yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Um, yeah. I mean, what do you think, Eric? What are you seeing?
I mean, the athleticism, yes. The ability to just play long paddle points, yes. I think it's just we have such a good interest in the game right now. I think you're getting these young guys out of college that they're getting country club jobs, and they're just hooked. And I think they're just maybe parlaying a little bit of getting out of college tennis and they want to stay competitive and they're
Yeah.
and they're just doing it the right way. They're, maybe not being naive like us three when we first started and that we have to finally ease into it. But I think they just really bought in. They want to win. And what I'm finding really impressive about them is that they're starting to develop their identity of what type of paddle they want to play now. They're not like going through the losses and you can tell that they're lost out there. Like these guys, they're starting to get the type of paddle that they want to play right away.
Yeah.
And yeah, to kind of piggyback on Mickey Davich, like he hit me up. He was like, "Hey, Eric, I'd love to play a tournament with you. What's your schedule like this year? Like I want to learn from you. Just like name a tournament and let's go play it." And I looked at the calendar and Drew's having a pro flight event in December and we're gonna go play it. So I think it's like
Nice.
it's the willingness that they want to go out there and play with some of the older guys on the tour that we'll call ourselves, but they're just hungry, man.
Yeah.
But speaking of a young guy that, got as a partner, talk to us about Guillermo Nunes. You know, I want to backtrack a little bit. So Mark, how I learned how to play was watching you and John play, as a fellow lefty, and I see a lot of Guillermo, kind of how John played, and of course it's a lefty righty, but man, just dive into how that transition has been from John to Guillermo, and what are you taking out of this newfound partnership that, hey, wins a national title the first year you guys play together.
No, I mean it was kind of a crazy last season for sure. You know, John and I had a really fun run. We played 8 seasons together,
The best dude, by the way. I
and yeah,
mean,
he's
Mark, you're a
one.
great guy too, but I mean,
No,
John
he's
is.
he's a way better dude than me. No, but he's become one of my best friends in the world, and he came down on my bachelor party, and we keep in touch. And um, I had been essentially forcing him to play the last season and a half, just being like, dude, come on, really? Like, we're never gonna hang out if you don't come. Like, doesn't matter how we do. Let's just go have fun, grab some beers. And it worked for a while, and then it became, you know, when you start really falling out of love with it, just because, he has a family, he lives in a place where there's not much paddle, so he couldn't practice. And he just started kind of resenting the sport a little bit, just because, it's tough. But we always had a blast playing together. I've really only learned how to play with lefties because John was essentially been my only partner prior to Guillermo, and I'd played a few events with Mick, and I played one tournament with Drew. So I have been a lefty slut. But
Hey, you won Short Hills with Graham, so you can do it all.
yeah, no, it's true. It does help that Graham's 6'6" and can cover all the overheads. But yes, that was a good time. But no, I mean, so I'd met Guillermo through tennis. I played in this kind of finance tennis event that used to happen, still does. But we played in a tennis event in the Hamptons. He was a few years out of college, met through that, and then we exchanged information like 3 years later randomly. We hadn't kept in touch, but we had fun that weekend. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm playing this sport. I heard you're pretty good at it." And I was like, "Yeah, I play a bit." He's like, "Yeah,
I'm all
so
right.
yeah."
Just national champion. But yeah, no, I'm
So,
okay.
so no, so he's like, I'd love to get out there and play some tournaments. And this is at the point where I'm tapped out at 5 events a year. Like, that is, I'm not like playing six. I'm just not going to be happy about it. At the time, I was just like, I got 5 for John, and we're good. I'm set. And so, but I was like, yeah, dude, like I probably not going to play that many other tournaments other than with John this year, but anytime you want to practice, because he was up in Westchester. And we ended up not putting it together. Things would fall apart. He was 24 running around New York City as well, or 20, and so we never ended up putting it together. But then he had reached out at the beginning of last season. And I was like, dude, I'm forcing my partner to play with me. I can't like not play with him. This I'm not gonna pull out. And it was the nice way to say it, but I was pumped about playing with John again. And when John looked at me after our first tournament of the year last year and was just like, I don't got, this, I don't think this isn't working. It's not fun anymore. And which I obviously understood. I was like, well, shit, it's January and I don't have a partner for nationals. And then, of course, I'm sitting here being like, I'm going to say I'm too old, but I'm too old to start like having to like try to find a partner a month in advance, like the Nationals.
I
Maybe I
gotta
don't play.
go on Tinder, like paddle
Just
Tinder, Jesus.
start swiping.
Swipe.
And actually, I probably wasn't gonna play. And my wife was like, "Mark, you have to play," and she's actually really made traveling to tournaments more fun again. She loves going to all the events, and we make kind of date weekends of it. It's been good, but I was like, all right, so I'll try to find a partner. I try to find a partner for short hills. I reach out first to Steve DeRose, see if I can pull him out of retirement.
Which would have been
It
incredible.
would have been epic.
I would have defaulted and watched you guys play the whole weekend.
That would have been a lot of fun. But and then I reached out to Mark Parsons, and Mark was actually he's like, you know what, maybe we ended up waiting too long. We were going to sign up. I thought signups were like Monday morning was like the deadline. And I tried to sign up Sunday night, and we were past deadline. And Graham reached out to me, telling me that Juan got injured, and if I asked if I wanted to play, so I played. But the week before, I called up Guillermo. I was like, dude, I don't have a partner for nationals. You still don't have a partner? And so we teamed up, got one practice round in at Philly, and then went for it. And he's super talented. And he's got a pretty crazy eye for the game. Again, just how quickly he's picked it up. I mean, I know the story gets repeated like every time people talk paddle, but the fact that he couldn't make the A draw the first term of the year last year, and then he won nationals, it's pretty wild. But it's been good. It's been a lot of fun. I'd say, the difference between picking up another guy, that's kind of around, it's been playing for 10 years is Guillermo's been playing for a year and a half. And, and these other guys have been playing for a year and a half. And while they know the game really, really well, like partnerships, new partnerships, they have to be worked on. And like, lefty righty helps a lot. And I'd say feels like 95% of the time we feel really in sync. And then there are other times where, you kind of feel like you're on the court. You're like, oh, I shouldn't even have to call it. Like he's got it. But when you've played 4 tournaments with somebody, it doesn't really work that way. But so it's been fun, like, creating a new partnership. I hadn't done it in forever. I played really with one partner, and so it's been kind of revitalizing, having a young, super hungry, athletic guy. And it hasn't worked in terms of playing tournaments in the fall. I told him I don't play fall paddle, but he wanted to get me out on the court and get some reps in. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's do it. I have to warn you, I might practice once every other week before these tournaments, but you want to go out there? Let's do it. It's like, I promise you I will show up starting Jan 1. I don't know, man. The season's, it's a long season. It's a mental and physical grind. I don't know that I have it in me anymore for the whole season, but it's been fun. It's been a good time. He's a great dude, super talented, and it's fun. He's pushing me to try to get better, and hopefully I'm doing the same. And yeah, see where it goes, man.
Well, I know we as players and I'm sure the fans, we all appreciate having Mark Powers in the fall, early part of the season, in the mix. So
Hey, some Mark
we got
Powers is better than no Mark Powers.
100%, 100%.
Well, I appreciate that, boys. I appreciate it.
So as we're wrapping up tonight, what are some things that you're looking forward to this year, maybe in coming years? What's got your eye?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a super interesting field this year. You know, it's funny. Last year, everyone always goes into nationals saying there's 8 teams who can win, and I'm not one of those guys who sits there on like a pedestal and is like, whatever. Like last year, there were 8 teams who could beat any of the top 8 teams in the country. there were not 8 teams in my mind that could win, that could string 3 of those matches back to back to beat the top teams. This year might be the first case I've seen since I started playing paddle where there are that many teams. I think partly a kind of a function of so many new talented teams, new partnerships. And one of them, I'm definitely looking down at Eric West at the bottom of the screen, and you and Fraser are playing some really good ball, man. It's awesome to see, and it's fun. Like I love that. I love, when it starts getting a little old when it's the same teams playing the same teams, over and over again in the quarters, and they're, I don't know. I think the partnerships are super exciting this year. I think the field is unbelievably deep. I mean, when you start playing first rounds against guys who are not even, who aren't top 30 or 40 in the country and they're ballers, like that wasn't the case when we started playing. Like we used to go into tournaments. John and I, wouldn't get out, practice together for like a week and a half, and we'd rely on first rounds being a good warm-up round. There are no warm-up rounds anymore. Everybody's good. Yeah. Everyone. And yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting back half because people know how to play each other individually, and they know how to play the team that they've been playing for the last 5 years. But you put two individuals together, and you're like, well, I've never played those two together. I mean, it's the same thing with like Guillermo and I. Like, I don't know what to expect from these 2 little guys, one lefty, one righty, and they both like hitting forehands and running around the court. Like, it's wild to see new teams, dude. You get so comfortable playing the same 2 people as a team, and it's really deep this year. This year really is kind of a pick 'em, which is fun. It's fun. Very excited for the back half. I love Boston. I love Short Hills. That lead into that march into nationals is always a blast, and I think Philly's going to be sick this year. So, yeah, man, a lot to look forward to. A lot to look forward to. Oh, and don't forget Charlotte Open.
That's right. That's right.
You can't forget Charlotte. No, I think maybe other than Felipe and Chris, and then Johan and Steven, you're right. There's so many new partnerships that are in that top 8.
Yeah.
What's going to be interesting, other than Boston and Short Hills, you're not going to get
nobody's going to get reps against each other. Like nobody's going to get reps.
Yeah, there's I highly doubt this will happen, but you could make an argument that say maybe me and Tyler won't play you and Guillermo until say nationals, like something, because we're obviously going to play Boston. We're obviously going to play Short Hills.
Oh, 100%. I mean, dude, I went, and this is a wild stat, but I went, I think it was 3.5 years where we kept making the semis, and we were on the other half from Morgan and Fraser. Didn't play them once.
You only play them at Short Hills.
We played them one time over a 5-year period where we should have crossed each other's paths like 8. Like it's completely feasible that we wouldn't see, or that we wouldn't see, Graham and Adam. And yeah, there's a lot of that. It makes it fun. It's interesting.
No, I agree. I
mean, Eric, we talked about it with Philippe, right? Where really round of 16 at nationals is not what it used to be. Like,
no,
you have sleepers in there. I don't even know if you can call them sleepers anymore, but you've got all kinds of teams where they can have, quote unquote upsets. It's a stacked field of teams and players, and who knows who's going to be coming up.
I'm looking at the rankings right now. And say nationals started tomorrow. You have Drew and Tomas would be the 7 seeds. They just beat Jose and Alvi.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
yeah, man, that's wild. But yeah, it's super exciting. I also think that's partly the fact that there haven't been like in past years, I mean, obviously, Alvy and Jose have had an amazing run, but I feel like in prior years, honestly, other than last, there were always like a dominant four forces, and not that many people really believed that they could kind of break into that, and so it felt like it was pretty stagnant. You kept seeing the same 4 or 5 teams, and before that, it was it was just like Drew, Johan. It was just like very repetitive. And now, because there's, I think, a combination of just a ton of talent entering the pool, kind of simultaneously, but also the mix in partnerships. You don't have guys who've been playing together for 10 years and been dominating the sport. And so it's really it's gonna be a fun year. It's gonna be a fun
Yeah.
year, boys.
Wow. Well, speaking of which, so next weekend is Detroit. So have you guys seen it all? Who's all signed up?
I have not looked.
I haven't either.
So I think the top 4 seeds, I think it's Guillermo and Jose are going to be the 1 seeds. They don't have the seeds posted, but I'm just going through the list. Who is
Got
going to
10
be
and
the 2? I think oh no, sorry. Graham and Adam are going to be the 2. Johan and Steven will be the 3. And then Drew and Tomas are going to be the 4. So,
Wait, sorry. Is that right?
yeah.
Johan and Steven are the 3 seeds.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't know what the rankings are. That's nuts. That's a stacked draw.
Yeah. I mean,
Are you
our
guys
second Grand
playing?
Prix.
Are you guys
So,
playing?
sorry,
Are you guys playing?
or not. I'm actually got a busy weekend next weekend. I'm playing in a squash tournament. We're hosting a housewarming party. We have our company Christmas party,
Oh, very nice.
and Katie's cousin is having an engagement party. So out of
Nice.
all that, I couldn't find an
Yeah.
excuse to go up to Detroit.
No, but you playing?
I am not. I'm actually playing the DC tournament this weekend at Congressional.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, so it'll be
Sweet.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be a good time.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully
Nice.
one day we can get you guys to come down to the district and play that one.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I would love that.
Add it to the
Congressional. I've
list.
heard.
Add it to the list, baby.
We're gonna end up playing none of the
And
Grand Prix, none of the tour events. We're only going to the smaller, obscure
only to
tournaments.
NRTs. Here we
I
We're
think
go.
going to we're going to Cali. We're going to Denver. We're going to Charlotte, Charlottesville. Yep. When is
Name them.
Midwestern's this year? Oh, sorry, it overlaps with Charlottesville.
Hey, and then wrap it up with Canadian nationals, not US
Oh,
nationals.
hell yeah, that would be a blast.
I've
Good stuff.
actually heard that is a sick tournament.
Fingers crossed I can finally play my home country tournament. I can be a national champion somewhere.
Mike Stulak, it
Yeah.
wasn't
Actually,
he?
I talked.
Wasn't he national champion in Canada
Yeah.
and juniors and here?
Wow, that's a hard feat. Well, I can't get juniors unless Vince Broderick wants to play.
Nice.
I could fake it as an 18-year-old, right?
Oh yeah, you could pull it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. All right, boys. Well, Mark, it's been a real pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a
I know
blast.
I can speak for Eric and myself. We loved having you here, and we appreciate your time. Eric, you're the man. Thanks for joining again.
Working?
Thanks for co-hosting.
Absolutely.
Well, we look forward to a good tournament in Detroit next weekend, and looking forward to a good back half of the season, and we'll see Powers in full power.
Absolutely, boys. We'll have to grab a beer at the next tournament.
Yes,
Definitely.
sir.
All right, gentlemen.
All right, team.
All right, guys. We'll see ya.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
See
night,
Mark.
you.
boys. Later.